Part of the tradition of a mural is painting large-scale artwork. I think a mural is basically one that tells a story, and it tells a story in a very large form, like 20 feet by 30 and that kind of a thing.
Can you do it small?
Well, I can do a small mural painting. We call it a canvas-sized painting, which is maybe 22 inches or 32 inches by 40 inches. Once you go beyond that and you get maybe a door size, you know, that's the size of a door in terms of size. And when you begin to try to tell a story, a visual story, like in a traditional sense, then we refer to that as a mural painting. And traditionally, mural paintings dealt with frescoes and mosaics. Fresco where they painted on wet plaster, and the plaster were allowed to set up, and the colors kind of fused into the wet plaster, so it was a very durable media. And then they had the mosaic, which is the inlaying of these little small pieces of glass or stone to make the picture. So they painted with little pebbles, so to speak, by inlaying them, gluing them in. My paint is basically acrylics and an oil base. It's not quite as durable as, say, a fresco or mosaic, but it's pretty durable. The only other, I would say, contemporary thing that is more durable would be painting on porcelain enamel. And that's the kind of a paint where you paint on metal. It's put in a furnace and fired up to about 5,000 degrees for about 5 minutes, and the paint fuses with the metal. It's very durable. It's the kind of a thing that you can cook with.
When you are contemplating a mural, do you see the whole thing before you do it? And if you do you produce it in smaller form before you actually do the mural?
Well, it's both. I think traditionally artists have dealt with things that come through the subconscious, and you have a mental image of the entire thing, but it's very difficult to take an abstract image, which is kind of from the subconscious, and translate it in a three-dimensional form. And of course, one can do it, but you have problems doing it. And although I have preconceived ideas in terms of how this should be and how it should look, sometimes I make rough sketches. And then when I get underway on the large-scale thing, I always change it many times because I'm trying to enhance the design of the composition or the color harmony.
Professor Wade, we don't see Eugene Wade on any of your artwork. We see another name. What is that name, and why? Well,
that's during the 60s, there were a group of us artists during that so-called militant period we were going through. You know, the artists have gone through many stages and development. During the 60s, I was going to a so-called militant period, and we were trying to interpret whether we would be called black artists or artists, universal artists, or what have you. And many of us were thinking about an African-sounding name. Some of us even selected the African name, and I decided I was exploring with my name, and I just turned it backwards, E-D-A-W, which is Eda. And if you turn it the other way, which is my father's name, which is Wade. So that's how I came up with that particular thing. And when I began to use Eda, I began to, you know, my art seemed to take off where people were delighted by it and purchasing and whatever. So I said, I may as well keep that. You know, and I've been using it ever since, and that came about during the 60s.
Terrific. Issa, now you have been involved in a